we got a bit of an issue going on here. So in my mechanical room, of course, is the pressure tank for the well. If you don't know what a pressure tank is, well, follow along here for a little bit. We'll get into that. But this drip tray, she's got a little moisture in it. Not so good. Do you know the basics of your home's plumbing? You know, if you really had to dig into it, if there was an emergency in the middle of the night? Of course, everything's frozen, as usual. Hard on locks with the plastic coating on them. They don't like the flame, but we need to get in. Oh, helps if you open both sides. So like I said, I actually didn't plan on jumping into a series of preparedness videos. If you haven't watched a previous video to know what I'm talking about, back up a step. About knowing all the systems of your house and having some preparedness to be able to fix things. Well, a ways back, last year, well, I went into the mechanical room, and we'll get into more how the system works here in a little bit. There was water on the floor. So, of course, out of the pressure tank, there is a cast T. It's made of a cast material, like a bronze, you know, yellow metal, and it leaked. Now, everything in that mechanical room is only 5 years old. This shouldn't happen, but that's the world we live in. Things are mass manufactured in you know, factories that maybe are not in the best conditions, obviously, and that casting was extremely porous, and just from water running through it in the course of that 5 years, pinhole leak, but I caught it in time, no big deal. I'll show you the parts and pieces when we get in there. I swapped out the whole thing. Started from new, replaced it all, put it back together, no troubles. Well, this is what I think happened. I was very timid about tightening up that T into the pressure tank. It's a pipe fitting. Yes, it was properly, you know, pipe dope and all that good stuff. But now there appears to be a tiny, tiny drip, and it collects in that pan. And I'm talking over the course of a week or two, you maybe get a few teaspoons of water, but water is not something to ignore. It starts out as a little problem, and it can end up as a very big problem. So rather than press our luck and wait for a time when I don't have time and things are in a pinch, we're gonna deal with it right now. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we are going to, you see right here, that's power for the well pump. We're gonna go ahead and kill that. So that takes care of turning the water off. You can kill the power. You can, oh, I'm risking my life and limb climbing over all this crap. You can kill the power, shuts the well pump off. If you live in town where there is no well, there's gonna be a main shutoff. And it's not a bad idea in the cases where you can to do both. Locate and know where the water shutoff is for the building, close that, and kill the power to the well pump if you're in a rural situation, you know, double safety. Okay, so now that the water is off, we're gonna go ahead and close these lines off. That will stop any water from the house back feeding down the water supply and coming out here. I'll bring you in a little bit closer here in a sec. Now, because this tank is full of water, it needs to be drained. So, standard on the pressure tank T here, and we'll get you in a little bit closer to have a look at all that. There is a hose, you know, a hose bib installed, and its purpose is just for draining out the water out of the tank. All right, so this garden hose here is going to attach like so. Get her lined up there, just like that. Now you'll notice there's no handle on this hose bib, and that's intentional. I took it off because what you don't need is someone that doesn't know, or a kid or something down in the mechanical room, grabbing a hold of that and turning it on, because it will drain water out of this hose bib forever. It will never stop. The well pump will kick in, and it will pump and pump and pump and pump, well, until you got yourself a lake. Okay, garden hose is all hooked up here. Just very gently crack that open. Follow the garden hose. You gotta just run in the bathtub here. There we go. Out she comes. You put something on top of the garden hose if you can't see it right away. Save yourself a lot of trouble from finding out that the garden hose has been giving her on the floor the whole time. So, all right, well, stage 1 underway. Draining. So this is something you should at least know, you know. Decide what you're comfortable with doing, and in stages, you know, decide what you are and aren't going to do. You know, are you comfortable with shutting the water off? Are you comfortable with draining the tank? Do you know how it works? So on and so forth. You know, never would I insinuate that you need to know how to do everything if you're not comfortable doing it. I surely don't. All right, we just got to wait for it to drain. So, you know, a basic knowledge of how the water system works is a good idea. And that way you can have some confidence to tackle this. Okay, so now that the tank is drained, the next step for the pressure tank is just to double check that there is no issue with the pressure tank itself. So this plastic cap comes off, and you got this valve stem here. So like I said, there's an air charge in the tank that works against that rubber diaphragm. And my understanding here is when you're double checking, the pressure in the tank should be a couple pounds below what the lower limit of the pressure switch is set at. So we'll stick this on there. We have 36 pounds, which I think is fine. Maybe we'll top it up. I say we're okay. If there was no pressure and the whole thing, like if you push this down and just water come out, or it has no pressure, then you got a problem with the diaphragm and there's a problem with the whole tank. But that would cause a whole different set of problems. Your well pump would run continuously, or it would cycle really fast, or there'd be a whole host of other problems you'd be looking for. All right, that's all stopped draining, so we're gonna put a drain pan under this. Close your hose bib off, like that. And then we can take the hose off. Now there's gonna be water, because now it's not under pressure anymore, but there still is gonna be a little bit of water in here. There, let's leave that open for a sec and let her drain. And if you're doing this too, don't forget this hose is full of water, so don't just drop it on the floor. Keep it above your head, you know, and work your way back to the bucket or the tub or whatever you were draining it into. That can also be disappointing. Nobody likes to clean up a mess. Okay, now we got this tote dug out here, the old pack out. Man, I'll tell you, Milwaukee knows how to get your money. But this is my plumbing tote. Before we dig into this, I'm just gonna say, the point of this, knowing your home's plumbing system and a little self-reliance and preparedness, isn't so that you're like a full-blown plumbing contractor, because I'm not. What the contents of this tote and you know, the tools that I carry to jobs, because keep in mind, general contracting and stuff is you know, how a guy makes a few bucks once in a while, is so that I am prepared in the event that something on a job site takes place. I have the best chance possible of correcting that problem. So I might be at a bit of you know, an advantage over a lot of homeowners, renters, or whatever the case might be. But you know, just some basics you might want to have on hand just in case. Up top, you know, you got your trusty emery cloth. You go, well, what's a little bit of sandpaper gonna do you? You got to clean up a fitting or a burr or anything like that. I mean, it might just be the ticket. The tubing cutter. A lot of older homes, right? They're gonna have copper lines. Maybe you're gonna want yourself one of that. You got yourself the pipe brush for cleaning up that copper pipe. This might be getting a little deeper than some folks are gonna go, right? Solder, flux, you got PVC glue, ABS glue, transition cement, Here's one you should have. Plumber's putty. If you don't know what plumber's putty is, well, then you should go out and you should buy yourself a tub. You're gonna find that tub drains, sink drains, a lot of stuff in older houses. You're gonna need yourself some plumber's putty. Teflon tape was what used to be in, oh, it's right here. Teflon tape. Some fittings require Teflon tape. Some styles of fittings require pipe thread sealant. This isn't actually for water fittings, but you get the idea. Here's a tool for pulling the ferrules off of nut and ferrule style fittings. Again, you cannot have too many tools, and it's nice to have them all in one place. Yet another set of tubing cutters, all the way from 1 inch down to 1/2 inch with everything in between, because you just never know. A hacksaw. If you live in a house and you don't own a hacksaw somewhere, well, you might just be asking for trouble. Tubing cutter. What do we got here? Oh, I bought this last year actually, just for one job. The Golden Extractor 3-in-1 application tool. This is for taking tub drains out. And I bought it for one job. Take it out of the package here. I bought it for one job, and it was worth its weight in gold because it was a very expensive tool. So it goes in the tub drain, like so. 3/8 drive ratchet, and it allows you to turn. That flares out this knurled wing and bites into that rusty old drain. It's got teeth on the other side. Work like $1 million. Now see, this is part of the preparedness. You gotta weigh what makes sense for me and my family, my home. If you bought this tool, I think this tool was, let's say it was $100, and you use it one time to take a stubborn tub drain out, to get something apart because you needed to fix a clog or the basket rusted out or you just needed to replace that drain. It's very simple. You could look up a YouTube video on how to do it. You buy yourself a $100 tool. There's cheaper ones, but this one was Cadillac. You did it yourself. Now you are not gonna get a plumber to come to your house for less than like a 4-hour minimum call out charge to do that tub drain. And these guys in our area, some of them are charging upwards of $120 an hour, plus mileage, materials, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, a tub drain very quickly, if it all goes well, you could be into it for like $500, $600, or you could invest in yourself. And of course, right, various sizes of pipe wrenches. It's good to have on hand. There's a set of toilet tank bolts. Again, a little thing like this could save you hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Say your kid flushes something down the toilet. It's plugged. You try and get it out, and you try and whatever, you go, well, we're gonna have to pull the toilet off. It's really backed up. We gotta get at it from the bottom, or it's down in the drain pipe. Well, you got yourself a wax ring on hand, a spare wax ring, a set of toilet bolts, spares. Then you're confident you can pop that toilet off, fix the clog, fix the plug, put the new wax ring, you got a new set of bolts ready to go, and you're off to the races, and you saved yourself a heck of a lot of money. Crimpers. Now this is where we're getting deep, and I'll talk about it maybe a little bit more towards the end of the video as to how prepared you're really gonna get. Modern homes, right? They're gonna be plumbed in PEX line. I'll show you what that is. I'm sure most of you guys know what it is. But if you got a water line burst, break, or you need to do a repair, maybe it's worth owning this. This 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch. So I got a size to do every size that you're gonna find in a home on hand, because, well, it's worth it. Now, how does that go? Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now, you want to crack this nut on the pressure tank T. Make sure your drain pan's still under there because she ain't done leaking. Now, and keep track of it too, because on the pressure tank T, there's an O-ring on the face too, on the spigot, so you don't want to be ripping and tearing, losing that. You hear that? That's why you want your drain pan still there. One thing I do know from plumbing is you want to be real mindful too of the mating faces. Like on the pressure tank T, it seals on a face and there's an O-ring in there. You don't want to let fittings swing together or bash together or that sort of thing. Nicks and dents are definitely an enemy. Move a few things out of the way. How does that go? A clean workspace is a safe workplace. And put the valve cover back on because you lose that plastic cover. You'll never find it again. I got a coat laid down here because the concrete floor is abrasive and I don't want to scratch the tank up. So this is all awkward to carry. Or a helper might come into play. Alrighty. Got some sort of grip on her there. Oh, gently lay her down and try and keep this tank T-pointing up. All right, let's have a gander at what's going on here. Okay. This is basically what is on the bottom here. And you know what? Now that we've got this thing apart, I'm not convinced. I am not convinced that this just isn't sweating. Look at all that sweat and water. All right, well, upon closer inspection here, now remember the reason we did this is because I noticed some water in the drip pan, and when I looked in here, in through this inspection hole, well, it's not an inspection hole, but the only way you can see in, there's a bead of water on the bottom of this pipe. But when I got it open, the whole underside of this pressure tank, because pressure tanks do sweat, right? You've got water coming from, deep well. It's extremely cold, and then it's coming into a warm environment. So if there's any bit of humidity, it's going to collect and it's going to form. But I've never had this tank sweat on the outside. And I've never noticed that before. So that's why it struck me as out of the ordinary. If you see something that is out of the ordinary, you should investigate. That's a very good rule of thumb for your house, equipment, whatever. You get used to what is normal, and that way when something seems abnormal, brain triggers that I should look into it. So I got a feeling that it's just because this tank is sweating, and the only thing that I have changed recently is I did change the stand out. Cut some holes in it and promote a little airflow just for this reason. But I thought I had nipped that problem. So now the tank is sweating. So I think maybe what's happening is it is sitting in the bottom of this pan and there's no airflow whatsoever. So what I'm gonna do is I have just happened to have, because again, you're a man of preparedness, you're gonna have a lot of random materials kicking around. I had some aluminum angle. Of course, it's non-ferrous, it's not gonna rust. I've taken all the sharp edges off. We're gonna put those in the bottom, set the pressure tank up on those, so we'll get an air gap up underneath and see what happens from there. At the very least, it'll allow us to have a better look, but the tank itself seems fine. I do think I'm gonna go ahead and pop out the pressure tank T and reseal it and make sure it's tight just for peace of mind. This fitting, there's not much you can do about it. It's factory installed, so we're gonna leave that alone. But for the sake of $1,000 tank, I think we're gonna try a little bit of that troubleshooting first to see. We'll get this out of the way. Of course, we gotta try and get this out. Ugh. Now you inspect these threads really good here. Look for dings, damage, dents. But it all looks pretty good. It all looks pretty good. So I'm gonna clean this up really good. We'll reseal all of this, put it back together. We'll get that tank sitting up on top of these angles now so it can get a little bit of airflow underneath of it, and we'll go from there. Sometimes the solution is, you got to be a little bit creative, and sometimes the problem's not what you thought it was. This is a heck of a lot better than just a plain old straightforward leak. At least at this point, it doesn't seem to be what the case is, but it is a nice feeling knowing that we had all the tools, the time, and the know-how to get to this stage and take care of it. Just gotta go ahead and get this, all the crap cleaned out of this, because I don't wanna, you don't wanna be putting new sealant over top of old sealant over top, and I know you're going, oh, but it's getting in the pressure tank, and anything that does end up in, you know, debris, you know, some of the old sealant or whatever, it's just gonna get caught in the water filter, which we'll get into in another video, why it's well worth having a whole home water filter. You got a good lubed up coat of sealant on that. If you're ever doing this kind of thing, you're like, oh, I wonder if, do I have enough sealant on it? Put some more on. It'll get rid of what it doesn't want. Okay, I'm gonna hold that nut up with this hand. Tighten with this hand. Ugh, okay. Now, this, you're not looking for torque wrench tight here, right? You got to get a feel for that, be your own judge. But loosey-goosey is no good. And do not, with a fitting, okay? Just put it this way. If this fitting is cast, this is bronze, this is not appropriate. This will lead to massive disappointment. The function of a pipe wrench is as you push, it tightens the jaws on the fitting that you're trying to turn. It's meant for gripping pipe. On these cheaper fittings, you know, of lesser quality, I might just punch a hole right through it. I might just crush it and be done. So it's got cast flats in it for a reason. Use them. All right, now like a proper professional, you're gonna go ahead with a rag, clean up the excess so you don't end up sticking your fingers and gooping in it later, because that's exactly what happens to you. You want to save yourself some other trouble too? Do something with this rag before you forget that you wiped the goop all over it. Man, oh man. I get these lined up. I got my drip tray, my new aluminum blocks here that I hopefully solve some of my sweating issue. It's heavy. Pivot that around like so. Up, just turn this a hair that way. Okay, that's tight. That's tight. You gotta put this piece of all-around strap back on this. Fasten that back in place, and we're good to go. We'll fire it back up. Okay, this part is where it's nice to have two people. I'm gonna turn the power back on, and my wife is gonna watch for leaks. Ready? Yeah. You hear it pumping? Yeah. Okay. If there's more than one adult in the house, there should be more than one person that has an idea how this stuff works. Still good? What's that gauge say? 300. No, the black numbers. 40. Okay. And it pays to go over it every once in a while with everyone in the house. Maybe not little kids, but when your kids are older, so everybody knows where to shut the well off, how to shut the gas off to the house, etc., etc. Just you never know. What's it say now? Yeah, it's got to be a while. It's got to fill that whole thing. All right, you hear the click? We're at a full 60 pounds. And then we're just gonna have a real good look-see to make sure that nothing's leaking here. No drippies, no drips in the water tub. No water in the tray. Well, there you have it. A few tools and a little bit of preparedness can take you a heck of a long ways to saving a few bucks and a good understanding of how everything in your home plumbing system works. So I will take you through and explain how the rest of this stuff works, just out of curiosity, because, you know, I'm rather proud of it. Built it myself. Why not show you? So I am 100% responsible for my own water supply. We have a drilled well that feeds a water line to the house. So in addition to knowing where all the stuff in the house is, I also have a detailed map of where the water line is from the house to the well, how deep it is. And of course, that's not a luxury everyone's gonna have, but it was all installed brand new when I built the house. So I made sure to keep track of where everything is just in case a guy needs to dig it up. So this blue line here, you can see, I don't know if you can see, right down there, that's pump drop pipe. That pump drop pipe comes from the well up into the T for the pressure tank that we just took apart. And then right here is the power cable. So we have water in, get a light on here for you. We have water in. That's our check valve to prevent backflow out of the house into the pressure T, our pressure switch, which I mentioned is going to sense pressure from the well pump and control it, turn it on and off. So this just makes a circuit, makes or breaks a circuit, which in turn runs over to a well pump controller right here. If there's two things, let's see, now the light's not helping us. If there's a couple things that I'd have, and I do have these items on hand, a spare pressure switch and a spare pump controller. The pump turns on into the T, fills the pressure tank. Now, the point of a pressure tank as a whole is so that you're not just continuously running the well pump every time you turn a tap on. So as soon as you open a tap in the house, it's going to bleed off pressure from the system. And that pressure switch, you know, when it drops below 40 pounds, it's going to turn that pump on. That happens very quickly without a buffer. Same as a receiver tank in an air system, if you're familiar. So this is a 62-gallon pressure tank. And essentially what it does is it fills it full of water and forces against the rubber diaphragm that's inside. It has an air pressure charge behind it, and we showed you with that Schrader valve, or the valve stem. And then the force of that rubber diaphragm pushes that water, and it pushes it through the water system, through the house. So it gives you that big buffer in between. So you're working off the pressure of the pressure tank rather than running the pump all the time. It gives that bigger. So the bigger the tank, the better. But there is a formula for sizing the pressure tank, but as a rule of thumb, I mean, bigger is better. There's less wear and tear on the pump. Out of the T, so now we're done here. We've got our pressure, we've got our gauge. I explained that this is a pressure relief to prevent anything from over pressurizing. You got your hose bib that we use to drain with. Remember to take the handle off. You don't want nobody fidgeting with that. Out of here in 1 inch, we go over, up, and into Big Blue here. And that's actually what it's called, Big Blue. That is a dual layer, how do they word that? 2 layers, 50 micron on the outside, 5 micron filter on the inside. And that filters all the bits and goo and whatnot that's gonna come and make it up from the well. At a later date, I'll show you changing that out, and it'll give you a real good idea as to why you're gonna want one. Whether you're on city water or well water, there's nothing in the well water that I wouldn't drink. It's the wear and tear on the plumbing fixtures in the house. And you'll see, when we change this out in another video, you'll see why you're gonna want one of those. Another thing, tool, preparedness that every guy should have is a notebook in the mechanical room. Every date that the water filter's been changed, the dates that I cleaned the chimney. This is a new notebook, so it doesn't have a lot of writing in it. The dates I cleaned the chimney, I also write down the dates that I cleaned or changed out the furnace filter, which we'll get into in another video. You want to know when all this stuff was done so everything's running proper. We got out to here. Everything before this point does not run into the water softener because, of course, you're not softening water to lawn sprinkler your lawn. So when I built this, we've got 1, 2 hose bibs, and the kitchen sink isn't on the water softener just because I don't like to drink the water softened water. I like, you know, I like everything that Mother Nature has provided straight into me. Water softener. If you don't know why you'd have a water softener and you don't live on rural property, well, we have hard water. It's got iron in it and other mineral deposits. So if you just let that run rampant, it basically will turn your toilet, your sink, your dishwasher, all these kind of things. Eventually it turns it kind of orange, just the iron in the water. So the water softener takes care of that so it doesn't do that. And this might not look like everyone's house, but in this house, what I chose to do is what they call a home run system. There was other names for it, but I call it a home run system. Every fixture, hot and cold water, has a dedicated 1/2-inch line from this main header run all the way to it. So what that allowed me to do was eliminate a ton of fittings. So there's way less chance of leaks. It gives me redundancy and mostly just peace of mind because I got laughed at when I built the house at the wholesaler. They said, what are you buying all them half-turn ball valves for? Every single line has its own shutoff down here at the source. So not only can I shut the main supply of water, I could shut it off here and here to isolate this filter if I needed to. Every single line has a shutoff on it if I needed to. And of course, at the fixture, at the toilet and the sink and everything, there's a half-turn ball valve. It's code. You got to have that. But if something happened in between that line, then I'm safe. And I could also work on or service any plumbing fixture in the entire house without turning all the water off because it's inconvenient. Of course, the hot, then the cold line run up over top. And, you know, like everybody, you got a hot water tank. That doesn't require a ton of service, but keep it clean, keep it dust-free. This one's a high efficient, so it's got the power vent motor on and it goes outside and that sort of thing. But that's kind of the deal for my plumbing system and how that all functions here, more or less. I'm digging the backdrop here. What do you guys think? Leave in the comments. You digging the backdrop here? We're kind of combined to the indoors with the winter months here, but this bench, I feel like it's a good spot to talk. There was no crazy serious problem, which is good. But what I really want to stress, aside from having the tool and an unfrozen garden hose and all these kind of things, just get familiar with what is normal. This is some of the best advice that I have ever received. And it came from a lot of time spent around industrial equipment. A couple of reliability guys that I had to work with for a few years, they went by the mantra, you get used to what is normal. You've got 3 gearboxes side by side, all same make, same model, doing the same job. One's gonna be a little bit warmer than the other. One's gonna dirty the oil faster than the rest. And one of the shaft seals is gonna leak on one of them all the time. There's not much you're gonna be able to do about it. That may be normal for those pieces of equipment. You get used to it, you note it, you record it, you got a logbook like I do in the mechanical room. It's as simple as just having a walk by these things once in a while. A cruise through the basement, a hand on a pipe, this is normal. That seems normal. How long does that thing, I don't know what that thing does up there, that valve or that pipe, I don't know what it does. But I know that it makes this sound for this long, and it does it all the time. It seems normal. There's no water on the floor. It's normal. So that way, when it starts doing something out of the ordinary, triggers your brain. You go, I don't know how to fix it, but that don't sound right. That shouldn't buzz, that shouldn't clang, that definitely shouldn't drip, because you spend enough time in these parts of your home that you recognize that. And again, for me to have a guy today come out and tell me, oh, the tank is sweating, there's not much we can do about it, I would have gotten very little satisfaction, very little peace of mind, because I was like, man, what else didn't he check? and it would have cost me $1,000. The tank was going to cost $1,000. We avoided that. We avoided the fees. With any luck, I impressed my wife. You know, she likes a guy that knows how to fix a couple things. And hopefully we got that dang water problem cleaned up. Drip and condensation. I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night without taking that apart to double check that it wasn't just that tank T-fitting that was leaking from an improper installation a year ago. But I better go check. Anyways, we'll catch you on the next adventure. Appreciate you watching. We'll get up to something new next time.